Everywhere you go, you're going to take your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, your associations, your past, your memories, your identification with form, your identification as this body. You're going to take your slavery and try to find freedom.
It's like,
it's closed, right?
It's closed. It's like set. It's like limited. It's like only what you know.
Been in a book somewhere, right? I would.
That's exactly right. Somebody would have told me.
Just the idea that hey, you can do that for yourself, you know, and it's not going to interfere with your job or your wife or your family. My name is Richard Miller, and welcome to Never Not Here. This show is our way to take a fresh new look at the world, and maybe find out more about life than we've ever imagined. You know, in the course of our lifetime, we've all studied a lot, and we've all investigated those things that have been of interest to us. Undoubtedly, in that context, we have discovered a lot. But still, life can sometimes seem limited, and even pointless if we start counting how many times we've gone around and around in the same rut. So, we want to find the key, if there is one, or at least get a hint to have the full experience of this vast and marvelous universe. To help us with this focus, we created a tagline, and it's to cultivate a habit to question the obvious. We like this slogan because, you know, probably we're all pretty sharp at looking outwards. So if there's more to life, just maybe we're standing right on top of it. In that case, it's our basic assumptions that have to be turned over. Because if we truly believe something is dead obvious, well, isn't that the last place we're going to look? We'll never even check it out. So to help us today in our investigation, we have our guest, who's made some fascinating breakthroughs into how simple and beautiful life already is. So please help me welcome Mr. John Sherman.
Richard, my pleasure.
Hello. Ojai, California.
Ojai, California. That's right.
Is it hot as Chicago?
It's hotter, but not so wet.
Dry, huh?
Dry.
So.
It's not always hotter. It's
no, the land of comfort then, right?
I love it.
Thanks for coming to Chicago.
You're welcome. I like Chicago, too. I was quite surprised at how much I like Chicago.
All right. Well, we'll have to show you around. One of the great things about your teaching is that it's so simple and right to the point. And so even though we've done another show, a couple other shows already, it's not like we're going to do a chapter 2. I don't think you have a chapter 2, right?
There is no second step.
Yeah. So that's beautiful. Why don't we just see if we can tell the viewers, like, why would we want to even listen to the show? Why would we want to? I mean, we're busy doing our own life. And why do we want to look in another place than our own life? Or do we? Do we want to look in another place?
Is life satisfactory?
It definitely has its ups and downs.
Has its ups and downs, which means it's not satisfactory.
Well, I mean, ups and downs kind of mean we're fixing it today. We might get some success, but then again, we're fixing it tomorrow.
So it's not satisfactory.
The fix is not permanent, that's
right.
For sure.
You know, it seems like if we're going to fix something, we ought to be able to fix it and expect it to stay fixed, at least for a while.
Well, we hope that about our furnace and our roof and a few other things.
and we hope that about our lives, too.
Right.
Which is why
we hope to grow, that's true.
Right, which is why we so energetically pursue pursuits that we think will enhance us or get rid of the things that trouble us or explain the things that trouble us or bring us a better relationship or a quieter mind or more fame or more money or whatever it is that we're looking for, that we think will fix these lives and make them so that I can live it out and be comfortable in it.
We're really always trying to fix something or to explain something, basically. Yeah. We're trying to explain something so we have a better understanding. I guess so we know what to do next time, right?
Well, I don't know if we even look that far ahead. You know, it's kind of like we're in a room where things are constantly, the walls falling down, and we have to go do something about that. And while we're doing something about that, a hole opens up in the floor, and while we're doing something like that, the air starts stinking, and
the boss just no calls, right?
We don't even have an opportunity to say, well, I'm going to do this so that if I just get this taken care of, then everything will be all right. Or if I just get this taken care of, then everything will be all right. That, in my experience in this life, I never even had a solid place to stand from which I could say, okay, now I'm going to fix everything else, because I'm here. Here I am. I'm good. I'm fine. And now I'm going to fix my mind, and I'm going to fix my body, and I'm going to so forth. It's more like we're in a fun house.
Really? I mean, I never thought of it that way, but I mean that's why I'm just so paused, because I am a little stunned, like, wow, that's right. We're really walking on quicksand, on banana peels.
We don't know
and
if the earth is going to open up beneath us, figuratively, in this example that we're using.
Right.
It's like a fun house. Things popping up, screaming at us, and
we have to handle it.
Mirrors that we can't tell where we're going or how we're going to get out. And the underlying problem with this is when we're in a fun house, we know we're in a fun house, and we know that eventually if we keep on going, we're going to get out of the fun house.
Probably an exit somewhere. We might make an extra couple of loops before we find it.
But the fun house that is our life, our consciousness, our mind, our history, our story, well, there is no escape from that. And it doesn't seem like there's anything we can do to make it satisfactory, stable, acceptable.
So, but still, you're not telling me that this is a recipe. Is this a recipe to make my life satisfactory? It's not a recipe, right?
It's not a recipe for anything. It's not a recipe for doing anything at all about your life. You've spent enough time doing things about your life. You spent 60, 50, how old are you?
It's a pretty good number there. You're getting right in the zone there.
Yeah, you spent enough time trying to do something about your life and have had how much success?
Well, just like we were saying before, I keep trying to get it back in order so that any of these fixes aren't permanent.
Right, and you set yourself like a goal, a purpose that is supposed to have some effect that will like finally get that wall straightened out so I don't have to think about that anymore. And you achieve that purpose, you achieve that goal, you actually like lose the weight or get a better relationship or get some more money and can pay your bills. But you see that the wall still crumbles. No matter how successful you are in attaining what you seek, the life itself still wants more. There still resides within you the sense that there's something more I have to get. There's never an end to it. We're like gerbils in a cage, running on a wheel. Except more complicated than that, because we like complication.
I was kind of thinking before, there's kind of like a division because it's the relativity to the society. Because if my life works with society, I probably define myself as a success, even though I'm going through the same ups and downs and refixes. And okay, if that wall doesn't break again, another wall is breaking.
That's right.
Or if my life doesn't go with society, in other words, I don't have a good job, a good wife, a good car, a good house, but I have a trouble getting a job and trouble keeping a relationship and trouble with everything, then I define myself as, maybe I say life sucks, I really know that it's unsatisfactory.
Yeah,
but that's kind of relative to society, isn't it? Or that's just my definition.
I don't
Still,
know.
there's the ups and downs.
For you, it might be relative to society, but for everyone, there is a sense that in some cases we are successful at what we seek to attain, and in some cases we're not. But whether we're successful or not, the basic unsatisfactoriness of things remain. Now, if you are unlucky enough to have what appears to be success in your life, a good job, a good relationship, enough money to pay the bills, and so forth, and I say unlucky enough.
I noticed that part. I was going to say, you said unlucky enough that I had a good job.
Then the energy that begins to operate is the energy that defends that as being enough. But it's not. It's never enough. Never.
Yeah, I know so many people that are in defending that, they've figured it out and they've got it.
And in a sense, and it's an old story, it's a cliche, the disaffection and existential angst of the rich is an old cliche. You know, the rich man has everything and fears that he'll lose it. Because, of course, he's lost everything before and will lose everything again. Now, the guy who doesn't have anything, the guy whose life is a wreck, I can testify to this part. I have a hard time speaking about what it's like to have success in life, but I have an easy time knowing what it's like to have no success in life and be on the outskirts and never have anything work right. And the guy for whom that is the case knows that his life sucks. That's the advantage he has. He knows that his life sucks. He knows that life is really not to be recommended.
You know, there's a whole metaphysical, of course you know, there's a whole metaphysical teaching that says that probably, you know, it hypothesizes that probably his life is bad because his attitude is negative and he thinks that it's bad, you know, and then the rich person is saying, oh, my life is good because I have a vision of goodness and richness.
Excuse me.
I have a vision of richness and goodness and you know, adequacy and being able to do it, and it's my vision that creates my life. And so then they're so afraid to even think that maybe my life is unsatisfactory because they think, well, that'll be the you know, the catalyst that will crumble my life, and it won't be satisfactory because first came the word of the Lord, and then the universe followed, right? And the same with man. First comes his word, and then. So that's something that holds people away from, I feel, to investigating their life anymore because they're...
Yeah, how in the world could Donald Trump stand up and say, you know what, this life really doesn't...
He couldn't do it, could he?
It really isn't what it's cracked up to be. And yet, for all of us, it seems, at least in my experience, life, if looked at... Well, I don't know what's making me sneeze. If you really examine it, you'll see that life kind of is a false promise. It holds out this promise of richness and fulfillment and the possibility of actually attaining satisfaction. You know, like there's nothing more I need to know. There's nothing more I need to get. I am satisfied with where I am and what I've done and what I've accomplished and what's here. And that's the promise that life seems to hold out. I mean, its actual promise that seems to be present is even bigger than that. It's bigger than that. And the fact of the matter is that it seems to be that our lives are a matter of getting up in the morning. First of all, we go through childhood, which is absolute insanity. We don't have a clue what's going on. We go through school, which is, I suspect, equally insane, although I have less experience with that. And then we settle into our lives where, if we're lucky, we get up in the morning, we go to work, we get paid for our work, we pay our bills, we get married, we have children who themselves are going through this insanity. We, if we are true to society's, to the demands of society, we spend our life, we go to work, or we have our own thing that we do, or whatever, but we can make money, we put money away, we pay our bills, we go on vacation, we watch television, we go to the movies, we go to plays, we go to music, we read, we learn things, we understand things, until finally we fall into a hole in the ground. Now, if that's not a false promise, I don't know what is.
I was just thinking that's really about the size of it, everything you said. I mean,
and that's the best.
Yeah, I don't even have to have a flashback when I'm near death because you just played it all out to me.
And that's the best case. That's a
without disease and without pestilence and without
without disease and pestilence and poverty,
you know,
and violence,
burning
and murder,
your house
and rape
down, and
then
there's all kinds of
that.
things that we're not even familiar with here. We just
but so that even if we look at the smoothest kind of life, where everything pretty much goes as it's supposed to, you know, I mean, there are hitches and things that go wrong, but where everything pretty much goes as it's supposed to, and you know, the world pays us back pretty much as we would expect it to. Still, still. There's never enough, and in the end, it's gone.
Right. People are willing to say, well, that's the condition. That's I don't know, that's the way God made us. That's it.
That's right. And that's how...
And so we're resigned to that,
that's
right?
how we resign ourselves to this this life which all of those who have considered this matter, philosophers, historians, spiritual teachers, religious figures, all who have considered this matter, we resign ourselves to a life that is fundamentally inadequate.
Routine, let's say.
And inadequate.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't fulfill its promise. And the universality of that experience of life as a false promise can be seen by the almost unanimous acceptance of the religious promise of salvation and redemption, which of course
so you need to be saved because something is inadequate.
That's
here.
right.
Or they say you're inadequate because you're a sinner.
So
and
that
you got to admit I'm a sinner before you can even
that's
join.
Right. So that even in the best case scenario where things are going smoothly, if I dangle before you a promise of salvation, of eternal life, of redemption, and I say redemption, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, it's not like we have to define it. It means redemption. It means making everything clear. In the end, that's what we expect, that everything will be clarified, that all of the things that don't make sense will be explained, that all of the inadequacies and quirks and unfairness, fundamental unfairness of the life will be explained and revealed, and everything will be shown to be actually a part of a greater plan. And if I dangle this promise before you with enough persuasiveness, even the richest man will want that. Even the richest will want to cheat death and get life's promise fulfilled in the end.
But the way they talk about it is salvation. It always seems like it's at the last train stop, and so then it feels like for a young person, like, oh my God, I mean, I want to find something that's at the intermediate train stops.
I'm not suggesting, and this just goes to add weight to my point, right? Is that even though religion offers such a flawed promise, it is so compelling that even though as a young person I will say, well, I can wait, I'll do that later, I still say, I'll do that later.
No, you don't even say you'll do it. But when you get to be there
later,
when it gets to be later, then you think, oh, God, maybe I should have thought of this.
And really, young people, old people, all people can be caught up in the kind of ecstatic, energetic experience of religious ecstasy or rapture in the right circumstances and fall in love with that. You don't have to be a death's door to be caught up in this energetic experience of ecstasy. And it is easily generated in any group of people because everybody knows there's something missing. Everybody wants that something missing to be supplied.
It seems like, it seemed like to me a lot of times I've had these ideas.
If you were at peace, why would you even bother?
Yeah, okay, I'm not at peace, and I pretty well followed the story that you said. You just painted the picture. You grow up in insanity, and you turn, and then you get a job, and you go to work, and wake up, and go on, and then it seems like, well, there's a heck of a lot missing. But sometimes I've had this idea, like, really, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that this universe is a miracle, a total miracle. And if somehow you could just touch this miracle, daily or every minute, or why not be in touch with it?
Of course, you are.
Yeah. Yeah,
daily,
in other words, I am the miracle, right? I mean, this is a miracle too. The whole, planets and the whole planet. The continents, the weather, everything that works is just a huge miracle.
It's not enough. It's a miracle. Oh my
It
God!
didn't make it happen
If
for me.
only-
I wonder why. Why is it so close? But and here's a simpler story. See, like I used to live in Italy, and like a lot of us would say, "Oh my gosh, I want to go to Europe. I want to go here. I want to go there. I want to visit." And here I was in these Italian towns and looking up at these old buildings and these old squares and stuff, and I would have to pinch myself and, hey, my God, guy, you're in Italy, this is not so bad. I was just thinking of the traffic or like where am I going to get to my next appointment. I was just contracted like I would be if I was living in Chicago. I didn't want to just say life doesn't work because a lot of people might not agree with that. But I think we really kind of laid it out.
I think that anybody, here's my experience, and I've been playing this really kind of bizarre role for about 9 years now. And here's my experience about people. Often people will deny. In fact, probably the most effective and most universal strategy of maintaining sanity in a life that is not right is denial. That's what we do best of all, is denial. So anybody, the most miserable, abject human being, from the most miserable, abject human being to the most exalted and honored and wealthy human being, will deny that their life is not worth living. Everybody. In public. But it's also my experience that in the privacy of your own heart, that everybody knows that they wish it were other than it is. Everybody might have a different other that they have in mind that they wish it were, but everybody wishes that life, their life, was other than it is. And that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
I'm not talking about the degree of suffering and relative misery that their lives endure, but this underlying conviction or this underlying wish. I wish it were other than it is.
Right. Well, I mean, it's just obvious because we just keep trying to manipulate and make things happen.
Yeah. Right. Otherwise, we'll just kick back, right? And enjoy the breeze.
Right.
Right. See, I wish this life were other than it is, too. Just like everybody else.
Me too.
Only what I wish about this life, what I wish were other about this life, is that every human being on the planet were finished with wishing it were other than it is.
Oh, boy. So, that's tougher. If I wish something happened to you, then, I mean, that's a tougher deal. If I wish something would happen to me, at least I got a fighting chance, right?
Yeah. Well, and it is that desire that all of humanity would be finished with wishing that life was other than it is that brings me to Chicago, and brings me to this couch with you, and brings me everywhere I go, and brings me online, and brings me to this work, I don't know what else to do. And the work is merely to suggest to everybody that I can possibly get their ear, by any means whatsoever. I don't need a lot, right? I don't need to remold your philosophy or remold the way you think about life, or change your mind, or work with your brain, or teach you how to do yoga or any of that.
So this is not a 5-year degree program.
It's not. All I need is to suggest to you that you're not what you think you are. And that's the only problem. And that if you can be finished with believing that you are other than that which you really are, life will be as it should be. Not a false promise.
Is this notion something that we really need to get a hint about, or is there any way to just fall on this by yourself, or it's just not intuitive?
I don't think so. I really don't think so.
Takes a little
I think
hint, right?
You have to. Well, on the other hand, I know that there have been cases where people have maybe fallen on it upon themselves, but maybe not, because in the case of Ramana, it was in the culture, right? It was in the society that surrounded him. So It seems like, I doubt that I would have ever happened upon it without hearing someone else speak of it. I doubt that. I mean, where do you get the space to see that? Like every cubic centimeter of the internal reality of you is used up with your efforts to make things right, to make sure that bad things don't come in and that good things stay.
Just the way the mechanism functions, I believe that if you had a deep insight into what this was all about, but nobody around you had any kind of clue about what it is, it would just fade away, gradually fade away. There would be no one to talk to about it. There would be no one, you wouldn't, I don't see how you can make it into
That's
something
true if you're
solid
speaking, that's
as
true
far as
if
what
you're
our mind holds as solid.
That's true if you're speaking about insight. But I'm not speaking about insight. That's true if you're speaking about understanding. But I'm not speaking about understanding. Once it is suggested to you that you are not what you think you are, and that it is actually quite easy to be rid of that idea, once that's suggested to you and you actually take the time and the effort to see whether there's any truth to it, I don't think you need any reinforcement. Because the truth is you've been alone forever. There's never been anybody but you. So from whence would you find this reinforcement? Once you get on the right scent, I don't think you need any reinforcement. But in my experience, it can be helpful and it can be useful and it can make things go more smoothly if you have someone to correct you and listen to you and see what you're doing. But in the end, you're on your own. I mean, the issue here is, what are you? Who can give you that? Who can possibly give you that? The issue here is, what are you really? Who can tell you about that? Anything anybody tells you about is just one more story about you to compete with all the other stories about you that are already running in your mind. I am a man, I am married, I am a human being, I am living in Chicago, I am of this age, I am of this height and weight, I have this education, I am born of this woman and this man, all that, right? That's the bare bones story about you. But then in the interstices, there's all the filling in. I am a good person. Well, I'm not always a good person. I like this. I don't like that. I want to be this. I don't want to be that. I like these thoughts. I hate these thoughts. Of what use is it to you to be given one more thing to believe that you are, or you're not? What's offered is a lot simpler than that. What's offered is the recognition that the reality of what you are is absolutely, self-evidently, obviously present as you. And that it is always possible, in fact, always possible for you to consciously see that. Always.
That's a huge promise. I mean, the fact that it's always there is pretty intuitive because, here I am. Whatever's animating me is here.
Yeah, but that's it.
There's
no more. There's no second step.
Right.
Here I am.
Well, the possibility that I can. What did you say? The last thing you said was that I could experience it.
But you do experience it.
I do experience it. That's true too.
All the time.
All the time, right?
You can't not experience it.
I'm worried more about myself that I believe myself to be. And,
but even in that,
whether I'm doing my job good or
right. But even in that, right? Even while you're worried about the self that you believe yourself to be, and worried about you doing your job correctly, and whether your tie is causing moire patterns on the camera or whatever you're doing, right? Even while all of that is going on, still you're here, and you know it. There's never a time when I could say, have you forgotten you're here? And you say, oh, yeah, that did slip my mind.
So that's really a beauty. That's a beautiful possibility, which is not a possibility. It's an absolute.
It is a certainty. And the beauty of it is not so much in its in its obviousness and its self-evidentness. Is that a word? It's not so much in that characteristic as it is that just by consciously recognizing what is already here, you will absolutely, if you will do that, just consciously recognize this that we've just been referring to. If you'll do that every once in a while, you don't have to stop what you're doing, you don't have to go off to a monastery or an ashram or a cave or anything, but if you will just every once in a while take a moment to re-recognize that reality that's here,
My here-ness.
your here-ness, that in the end, the belief that you are this life will vanish.
So each time somehow I see that I'm here, and then I just realize, oh my God, this story is something I'm adding on. And then it'll be a little bit less serious, you know.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Something like that.
Let me back up.
Yeah,
It's simpler than that. There's no second step to it.
yeah.
All you have to do is look at yourself. Just right now, look at yourself. Look at this here-ness. Now, go back to your business. Doesn't matter.
Forget about it, huh?
There's nothing about, you can think about it, that's perfectly acceptable. You can obsess about it, you can think about it, you can make expectations about it. But none of that's going to have any effect on the outcome. Nothing you think about is going to have an effect on the outcome.
It's just looking,
None of your understanding about it's going to have any
noticing.
effect. It's only the looking.
The noticing.
Yeah.
The noticing.
The
is-
looking.
The seeing is the.
That's it.
It's already. There's nothing to do with the seeing.
And that's how
It's just like
simple it is. That really is how simple it is. And that is the secret of eternal happiness.
The fact that I can remember and the fact that I can project
Yeah.
makes the past and the future. And if I couldn't do that, it's eternity.
And the fact
Which
that
means
there's
it's
distance
just-
between things and so forth.
Yeah.
But you know nothing of all that, really. All that is beside the point. You are here. And you naturally, without effort or intent or anything else, you naturally use these apparatus to see yourself, to look at yourself.
Always. Right.
That's the whole show. There's nothing more to it than that. And all of the vicissitudes and the storm and lightning and thunder and love and ecstasy and all of that comprises the story of you is just the story of you. Just a story being told about you. The entire history of the universe is a story being told about you. All of it. And because you are so simple, because you are so fundamental, primal, unmoving, eternal, because of that, nothing whatsoever that's said about you is true. That's why so much is said. That's why there's a 5 billion year history in the universe, because it is impossible ever to actually capture you by anything that can be said, or done, or seen, or created, or destroyed. But here you are. Obvious. The stories are fun and beautiful and so forth, but they're absolutely unnecessary. You can't understand yourself. You are yourself.
So all these descriptions, which is I guess it's just part of my mechanism, of my body-mind mechanism,
That's right.
and it's going to just interpret and describe and compare, and that's okay.
That's right. It doesn't matter. It does what it
useful
does.
for
It's just
getting on the bus or something
that's
like
right. It doesn't matter.
that. Yeah.
It's the idea that is prevalent in some spiritual traditions that we need to destroy the mind, for example. That's a very powerful and startling assertion in many advanced and esoteric spiritual traditions, is that the mind must be destroyed. That's absurd. Where's the mind that can be destroyed? What does the mind consist of?
There's no meat behind it.
Where is it to be found? Destroy it if you can.
Yeah.
Good luck. But you're here. Mind or no mind? Thought or no thought?
So many things, that are talked about as a spiritual tradition, to me, are seeming to be the way I am. And it's like, it's the effect of being me. I'm not an effect, let's say, I want to say it's who I am. Like meditation is who I am. When I really deeply touch, I feel all I felt when I tried so hard to meditate. But some people have taken the actual effect of being in full consciousness and try to make a method out of it and say, if you do that, maybe you'll get there. It's
there's nowhere to get to begin with,
get.
But meditation isn't who you are.
Okay, but
I
am meditative, though. I'm meditative.
Yes, I know. You're meditative.
I'm loving.
This particular,
these things, I don't have to try to be love.
That's the nature of this particular apparatus. But it's not who you are. If you were a drug dealer, slinging bags of dope on the corner, that's not who you are either. There's no more merit to being a meditator than to being a guy slinging bags of dope on the corner. There's no difference between them. No fundamental difference. There's a societal difference and a difference in the consequences in the way your life unfolds and so forth. But you don't have anything to say about that either. You're not a meditator. You're here.
This show is kind of penetrating very deeply in me, I have to say.
I'm happy to hear that. The thing that is that I find my work mostly doing when I have a relationship with somebody, like I have with you and like I have with a whole lot of people, really, when I have a relationship with somebody, what my work mostly consists in doing is saying, no, not that. Easier than that.
You're a deprogrammer.
Less than that. Sometimes I feel like that, like I'm a deprogrammer for...
Because, but I guess there's everything... You get to a point where you just think, well, everything's got to go. I think it's the truth here, because you don't need it. It's all excess baggage.
Your belief in everything has to go. But so far as I can see, everything goes anyway, except that while it's here. And it can't be relied upon when it's here to begin with. What has to go is this unseen, unconscious, unseeable belief that this is you. And that's easy. That's the good news. That's easy. We who have happened upon the spiritual realm, we have filled ourselves with such weight of absurdity about what's required of us in order to break free of the bonds of this life. We have filled ourselves with so many ideas of how difficult it is and how far away it is and how torturous and hard the path is to get to the freedom from being, caught up in this life. And we just can't see through that. But
I totally relate to that. And then we got a whole nother layer just saying, like, why should it be that way? Why would God create us that way? The crazy layer that's useless, that just is saying, I reject it.
Right.
First I make up this huge story, then I reject it.
That's right. And it's all unnecessary. I mean, it is necessary in that it's happening, right? The idea that there's these things that I have to do and it's a far journey and it's difficult and it requires me to have a certain amount of merit that I've accumulated, and the
intention and force and energy
and
willpower.
And in the other ear is why should it be that way? I mean, for God's sake, man, it shouldn't be so hard. If it's that hard, I'm not interested in it, and so forth. It's necessary in that it's happening, but it's not necessary for you to attend to it with such concern. So all of this is going on, all of this internal discussion, this internal dispute between the one who has the advanced understanding of things and knows that liberation is difficult, it takes a long time, and has certain prerequisites that must be met, like merit and stuff like, and instruction
hard work
and initiation and stuff
right.
like that, and hard work. When all along, none of that has any force whatsoever. It affects nothing. It does nothing to the life at all. And it certainly doesn't do anything to you. None of that hurts you, and none of that helps you. And all along, the reality is, as has been announced for thousands of years, that the only thing that is you. And you are never absent. You are, as you say, never not here. So, on what basis have we concocted these ideas that reality is difficult to attain when you are the reality and you are self-evidently here? Just look at yourself.
It's so beautiful and so direct, and all the old traditions are they're fraught with misunderstanding.
It's fraught with our determination to dilute and corrupt things so that they conform to our view of things seen through this life, seen through the belief that I am this isolated, separate individual at risk, at stake here in the world, in this life. And the fear and the timidity that accompanies that viewpoint, that point of view. But here you are. No matter all that, here you are. You're the same. Are you not the same now as when we started this taping? You haven't changed. You've said that you've been stunned or startled or whatever
touched
by some
right.
things, but you have you really? Have you been changed? Are you any different? Your mind may be different, but it's always different.
Right. Let me ask this, because, in a way, with the way we were explaining it, we were saying who you are is always here. So if I'm not concentrating on it, it must be like in the background, or it's the ground I'm walking on, it's just real clear that the whole mechanism here is always here, and that the reality of it is always here.
No, the mechanism is always here.
Yeah.
You go to sleep at night, and the mechanism vanishes.
Well, you're right.
And at the end of the life, the mechanism...
Yeah, at the end of the life, it does that.
It's tossed away.
But what I'm saying is, I'm trying to say that my belief that I am my life is kind of in the foreground, because, I guess I'm worried about, my consequences of today and all my meetings and my missed meetings and stuff. So that's in the foreground. So basically, the fact that I exist and the fact that I am is here also, but that if something is in the foreground, this must be in the background. The background probably isn't a smaller place. It's probably a larger place, but this somehow the foreground. Here's what I wanted to ask, So then, is there a point where the background comes forward to the foreground and the foreground recedes to the background? In other words, like where this life is back there working and doing its thing, my appointments or my life or my family is happening in the background, and I'm always I am, or I know I am every moment.
But you already know you am every moment. You see, the issue, and this is where we so often make the mistake, the issue is not that the life is in the foreground and that you have to attend to the business of your life. That's not the issue.
It's my belief that I believe.
That's right. It's this belief. The issue is the belief that this means that this is you. Now, the fact of the matter is that there's never a time when you're not aware of reality. Never. And it is true that the life remains in the foreground. But so what? If that's the requirement in order for you to be free, then we're in big trouble. Because what you're telling me is that, like, if I believe myself to be that plant over there, and I thought that the only problem with that plant was that it needed those leaves there cut off, And I got those leaves there cut off. Would that do any good? Would that cure the stupid belief that I am that plant? So, likewise, if I believe myself to be this life and I come to the conclusion that the real problem here is that all the business of my life, I keep it in the foreground, and what I need to do is bring something else into the foreground, and I succeed in doing that, is that going to cure the belief?
That's not quite the question, because I was, no, I don't think it would, to answer what you said, and to try to bring some other belief in there that there is a background, that there's a vast
You
background.
see, what I'm saying
like
to you,
this.
what I'm suggesting to you is that the reality of what you are is always absolutely, totally, unequivocally, without any degree whatsoever, all that's present. That's what you know. It is absolutely here. The intensity of its presence never changes. There's nothing you can do with your mind to change your mind in such a way that that intensity will increase, and there's nothing you can do with your mind by trying to bury yourself in a hole of concern and worry and so forth that will make the intensity of it decrease. Its intensity is unchanging. It is permanent. It is absolute. It is you. So that when we begin to speak about, is there ever a time when it is in the foreground and the other is in the background, I can't make any sense of it. Because there's never a time that it's not totally, fully here, realized, present. Never. Never has been.
I just guess I meant in my focus. In other words, I mean, you're telling me it's always the same, right? So I don't really say that I can say that with authority. I'm assuming you can, that you see it, that it is always the same. And I was just wondering if it also comes into focus in a real sharp way, where it's always in the spotlight of my awareness, let's say.
No, but right now you can move the spotlight of your attention toward reality and bring it into focus. And doing that will, over time, get rid of the belief that you are the one for whom the vicissitudes of life is in the foreground. The vicissitudes of life are their substance. What they are made up of is reality, which is you. They're not separate from you. They're not like some alien creature, the Matrix kind of situation. They are you. All the foreground, the background, the belief, the lack of belief, the struggling, the peacefulness, the meditation, the slinging dope on the corner, at all, its substance is you, is reality. So the question becomes meaningless, and discussing it just is a metaphysical exercise, which is okay. But in the end, you must see for yourself. There's no way in the world that I can make this make sense to you. In the end, you have to see for yourself. Nobody can tell you what it feels like, because you already know what it feels like. So, I wish I could answer your question, and I wish I could say to you and your viewers that yes, if you continue with this, in time, it will be heaven. It will be in the forefront, and the hell of your life will recede into the background.
Right.
But your life isn't hell. Your life is reality. It's just not you. I can tell you this, that if you persist in the inquiry, the urge to have the vicissitudes of life recede in the background will vanish.
Doesn't matter.
Along with the belief that it's you. I can tell you that. I can tell you that the conviction that there are things that are happening in your life that are dangerous to you or are hurtful to you or might give you what you want, that'll vanish.
what it seems like is whatever comes up in my life is I'm able to handle it, and I'm without making a energy wasting reaction about it, and I just handle it in the best way, and then I say, great. Bring on tomorrow.
That's it.
It's okay.
I mean, you can say bring on tomorrow or not. Tomorrow will come.
Yeah, right.
Until it doesn't.
Not like I've had to put the brakes on it anyhow. Yeah, please bring on tomorrow.
So, the only thing I ever have to say, and I've enjoyed these conversations with you. This has been really helpful to me. But the only thing in the end that I really have to say is find out what you are. First. It's not, don't concern yourself with metaphysical issues or psychological issues or spiritual issues. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, yes, surely. Concern yourself with all that. And along with it, with how to get money and how to get love and all of that. Yes, by all means. But first, find out who you are, what you are. First.
Sounds like when you know what you are, I mean, all these other things should be pretty obvious. How to get money,
that's right.
I mean, or how to integrate with society, or how to be of value to this planet, or I mean, how to you don't have to necessarily.
The greatest value that can be given to the planet and to humanity as a whole is for you to be finished with the idea that you are your life. For you to be finished with the idea that you are your life. That's the greatest boon that you can give to humanity. I guarantee it.
And so, no matter what I'm doing, if I'm attempting to serve my fellow mankind, I mean, if I'm also knowing that this life that I've always thought was me is not me, then whatever I'm doing is going to be touched with gold.
With grace, that's right.
With grace.
That's right. And strangely enough, and if you reflect on it at some point, you'll see that it is spiritually absurd to say so. But strangely enough, in the absence of the belief that you are your life becomes much more harmless, much less destructive to the world around you. Strangely as it is, your life becomes sweeter. And
that's logical in a way, because, if I'm not struggling and straining and thinking like, oh my gosh, I got to get this, and you say, no, I got to get this, and we're kind of butting heads, I mean, there's going to be a destruct in there somewhere.
It's what we've said before in these conversations. The war starts here. All war starts here. This is the only place it can begin, in this internal warfare that stems from the belief that I've got to do something to make this life right. And that means that thought has got to die, or that desire has got to die. And this thought has got to be held on to, and this desire has to be held on to. That's the war. That's always the war. I like this and not that. And that starts here. There's no other place that it can end. It can't end in Iraq and Afghanistan until it ends here.
Boy, this is really wonderful. I think we're getting clearer and clearer. I guess we must know what we're talking about by now. We've done a couple of shows.
I wish.
I want to ask you about this. There's so many different ways to find out about your work, and actually there's a way to be with you on the internet.
We live in a time that is fraught with possibility, like no other time in human history has been. When the Buddha was teaching, he had to walk on his own 2 feet every step he took. And he taught for 40 years, and maybe he covered 500 miles. And maybe he talked to, let's make it big, 10,000 people of the 6 billion people that
40 years, right?
Now on Earth, 40 years.
Yeah.
But now, I can get on the internet and speak to anybody in the world who wants to join in with me.
How does it work? How do we find out about it?
Go to the website. We have a website. It's called riverganga.org. And every other week, unless we're traveling like now, but pretty much every other week we have an online satsang that's worldwide. And if you go to the website and look for the live online World Satsang page, everything will be explained.
So every other week means like on a Sunday?
On a Sunday.
I see.
Sunday afternoon Ojai time.
So
But we get
evening
people
here.
from literally the entire globe. So for some people it's like very early in the morning, and so for some people it's very late at night, but it's afternoon Ojai time, 3 o'clock Ojai
Wow.
time. Also on the website you'll find a page where it shows the time in Ojai and gives you a link to click on that'll show you the time where you are.
So we can actually talk with you, we can actually listen to you, respond to questions from people that are actually talking on
That's
their
right.
computer, on their microphone,
That's right.
and I can do it too. I just ask, I push the button that says like to talk, and
That's
you
right.
put me in the queue in the line,
Basically, yes, that's right.
and then I ask my question,
And I speak with you.
how about
Just like
that?
I'm speaking with you here.
How about that?
Yeah,
That's really fantastic.
it is fantastic.
So that's at www.riverganga.org.
That's it.
And then if you don't remember that, you can probably remember www.johnsherman.org, which is your blog and probably links to your website, right?
It does.
It does, of course.
And as I told you before, I don't know how this happened, but if you Google John Sherman, I'm at the top of the list.
You're the
Almost
top.
always.
You're the number one John Sherman.
number one John
by
Sherman.
Google, by Google's consideration.
Used
huh?
to be the senator from the Civil War era who
Oh,
was
yeah?
number one, but most of the time I beat him out now.
That's fantastic. So you know how to find John. So, boy, we're come to a close. I guess you have to go back to Ojai.
Tomorrow morning, bright and early,
Oh, drive safe, whatever you do.
4 days from now.
Yeah. But it's an organic trip. Just every little bump on the road and every butterfly you're going to pass, right?
Is a pain in the neck, yes,
Okay.
for somebody.
Well, I'm hoping you get joy out of it.
I do, actually. Strangers should say that.
Right. I kind of, once I was aware of the difference between a destination person and one that was just always on the trip, And so
I don't know where I would go. I mean, here I am.
So we're drawing really close to a close here, and we sure thank you, John Sherman, for
It's
being
been my
here.
great pleasure, Richard, really. I'm tickled pink to be a
Yeah.
part of this.
So we hope we can broadcast this show all over the place, and
Yeah.
we'll prepare different copies of it, and see if we can't get all the Comcasts and all the public
other
access
public access
stations,
stations, yes.
and put it
We
on the
actually
web.
have people in a number of places who would really like to have these videos in order to put them on public access. So they're waiting anxiously.
Okay, so you, our viewing audience, are our first audience, so please send us your feedback. So I have an email that will be on the credits, and you can email me and tell me what you think about these shows. We're going to have more of these shows coming up, and we're never not here, and I guess you could take that literally. And please come and join us, and for those of you watching, thanks for being here. And thank you.
Your beloved calls you here today to ask you for this dance. What will you say?